Manori, and so we'll come back to this series after, I think, a lapse of 1 week's time. So just to remind you about the two earlier sessions, we were talking about the potentials of viewers as Ayurvedic graduates, and then we were talking about the tourism potential of the Ayurvedic graduate in a more deeper manner. So you do have kind of a potential beyond tourism, but at the same time, tourism is also kind of a hugely potential area for Ayurvedic graduates to place themselves. So this lesson, we will be go deep, a little bit deeper into certain specific tourism areas or the tourism products which might be more attractive to you all, and more value addition can be done by the Ayurvedic graduate. So in this lesson, we are being specifically looking at health tourism, wellness tourism, and spiritual tourism, and how these things have a kind of a massive potential within the tourism area. So before I'm being start and sharing the slides, if you think about the because like all these subjects, disciplines, business practices had a kind of a massive paradigm shift and a dimension change after the post-pandemic context. So if you are thinking about the COVID pandemic, you see that most of the tourism businesses were dried out, and certain tourism business will take long time to recover. But as per the predictions, one of the key tourism areas which has the highest potential of being potential of growing after the COVID is spiritual and wellness tourism. Obviously, because these are both talking about people themselves and their individual selves, both body, mind, and spiritual aspects, which is in trouble right now. So this area will have a kind of massive growth as far as certain predictions are being made and the forecasts are made by the tourism gurus. What they said is like by 2022 or 23, this will again start blooming, and by 2025, it will be the largest tourism area itself. So with that note, let me share the slides. So I think is it visible to all of you right now?
Yes, of course.
Right. Okay. Right. So today's topic is health, wellness, and spiritual tourism, emerging potential. So I think like we already discussed why health is important part of tourism right now, because like earlier, the tourists are people who have been traveling to the destinations for purposes other than health, maybe entertainment, maybe business, maybe various kind of leisure activities. But gradually, because there is a kind of a different potential in different geographic regions of the world, health tourism is emerged, right? So if you are broadly looking at health tourism within the tourism sphere or within the tourism scope, health tourism can be divided into two areas. One thing is what we call as medical tourism, which address the particular requirement, medical requirement of illnesses. So if somebody wants to be prevent their illnesses, somebody wants to be getting treatments, medical tourism is addressing that part, and it's very big area, because if you are thinking about certain destinations like Thailand, like Singapore, like India, all these kind of destinations are emerging as medical tourism destinations because of the fact either the particular medical cost is being lower in those destinations, or they are more sophisticated. As an example, most of the Sri Lankans who are affluent are going to Singapore for their treatment. Like the hospital like Mount Elizabeth is having a kind of massive influx of Sri Lankans, including the topmost people in this country. So, because of the higher sophisticated medical care for an affordable cost, you can get this particular treatment. And you see, like even the general folks of Sri Lanka for their kidney transplants, various other kind of surgeries are going into India. So, medical tourism is a bigger area which people are going for treatment. Along with them, several other people will be going, and along with the treatment they may be like say do certain other kind of soft activities, but it is a kind of extremely specialized area. Even in Sri Lanka there is a kind of a kind of a medical tourism business to the countries like Seychelles and Maldives. If you see about the allopathic medicine in here, most of the Maldivians as well as Seychelles people are coming to Sri Lanka to take the treatments because of the fact that their medical system is not so sophisticated as ours. But if you think about health tourism, it is not about treatment for illnesses, but it is the particular, say, if you talk about the wellness tourism, under health tourism, it is not about the particular treatment of the illnesses, but to prevent these illnesses. So, wellness tourism is addressing that part, right? So, if you think about medical tourism, the health tourism, it's the broader term. Within health tourism, you can see medical tourism and wellness tourism. So, wellness tourism, as I mentioned in my last presentation, is for the people who are healthy and looking for way to preserve their health, right? So wellness tourism involves people who travel to different places to proactively pursue activities that maintain and enhance their personal health and well-being, and who are seeking unique, authentic, location-based experience that are not available in the home country, right? So wellness tourism seekers, as I said, like say wellness is the well-being and fitness is being together. So wellness tourism business is much, much bigger because the majority of the crowd who are in the tourism, who are tourists, are looking at certain amount of wellness aspects. They don't want to get ill. They want to be healthy. So they are be looking at ways to be healthy in those kind of different destinations. And they are looking for destinations which provides them a kind of a healthy being of living, right? So the medical tourism business is also kind of a big business, but I'm not going to address the medical tourism business because of the fact that it is confined to more technical areas and it is the treatment for the illnesses. So I think you are much better than me on understanding that, as well as like how these particular treatments are being happening and things like that. So within health tourism, we are looking more into the wellness tourism aspects. So wellness is not for the sick people. Wellness is for the healthy people who are looking for physical, mental, emotional, and various other kind of wellnesses, right? So health tourism is the big chunk, and within that, we are looking at the particular wellness tourism. So healing and spiritual aspects is part of the wellness tourism. So if you think about wellness tourism, I already differentiated what medical tourism and health tourism, wellness tourism are. So wellness tourism is a proactive approach. That means people who want to prevent themselves peril, prevent themselves from getting unhealthy, prevent themselves from getting into a kind of a say non-fit lifestyle. They are going into a kind of a wellness aspects, and they were actually motivated towards healthy living, and they are looking for the ways to prevent diseases. And the modern days, you know, like most of the diseases are psychosomatic, and people are having a kind of a psycho element which creates the physical diseases. Even you think about hypertension, diabetes, gastritis, and all these kind of things has some element of stress, depression, and other kind of things. So that actually has a kind of a poor lifestyle habits and in connected with those. So wellness tourism seekers are actually looking for a way to eliminate these poor lifestyle habits and being detoxifying themselves and introducing something authentic to their life. So they are primarily the people who are actually healthy and looking for a way of maintaining their health. And by and large, that is the largest segment of the tourists, and they are affluent. They are well-to-do and they are very well educated. They are actually coming from affluent locations, probably doing very good jobs and belongs to middle class. So obviously they will spend better. So it's not about like say you get ill and you somehow want to cure it. You have been like say taking the option proactively to not get help, not get sick, right? So activities are proactive, voluntarily, and non-invasive and non-medical in nature. So these activities which we are talking about in wellness tourism are not necessarily the treatments. These are activities which provides you a kind of a say voluntary, proactive as well as non-medical in nature, but have some kind of medical benefits and the health benefits. Right? So wellness tourism is not necessarily confined to a hospital or somewhere. It is going broader than the hospital into nature, into various other kind of areas. And hospital is something which has not been heard in the wellness tourism paradigm. So very rarely that we have been thinking about using hospitals. So wellness tourism business is not actually emerged recently. It is being actually emerged long time ago, especially in Europe as well as countries like Russia. Usually when people want to get their summer vacations, they are using those vacations in healthy locations. In Russia, people are going to places like Malta. And the Mediterranean Sea and Mediterranean resorts are is using as sanatoriums by people. So those kind of things are very much evident throughout the history, even in the Roman days and all these kind of days. People have been looking at the ways how can they fit and be well. Well-being of theirs is being looked at, right? So if you think about the dichotomy or the extreme ends of medical paradigm and the wellness paradigm, medical tourism is for people with poor health who want to be feel better, right? And wellness tourism is for people who want to thrive, who want to be like say fit, thrive, be happy, and all this kind of thing. And medical tourism is treatment and cure of the illnesses. Wellness tourism is maintaining and improving health. So it is a kind of a preventive act rather than a corrective act, right? So it is not episodic. That means not been looking at only one part as one particular time period as you have been like say sick, you have been taking treatment for that thing. It is a holistic act. You are looking at all the aspects of say body, mind, spirit, and everything, and get trying to get wellness in every angle. So it is not clinical responsibility of a doctor or somebody. It is the responsibility of the individual. That's why we call it a voluntary type of tourism, right? And it is integrated into life, not a compartmentalized, distant from life scenario like you are in a hospital. So you see, this wellness tourism is having a kind of broad potential. That means, like say, wellness tourism can grow immensely because most of the people are fallen into this category. They want to thrive, they want to be happy, they are willing to take voluntarily action to be healthy, and most of the developed country people are like that. They always seeking a kind of a way of make their life happier and make their life healthier. So and on the other hand, if you are seeing these aspects, integrity to the life, the holistic aspects, and the maintain and improvement of the health, thriving of like say physical health as well as mental health and all, which medical system will serve better this wellness paradigm? Which medical system is having all the elements which suits for a wellness tourist? Is it like allopathic medical system or Ayurvedic medical system? Hmm? Or like in broadly indigenous medical systems? What is more suit for the wellness paradigm? Hmm? Any of you? Why I'm being emphasizing these factors and contrasting it is to show you something which your medical system is much better suited for wellness tourists. Actually, wellness tourists does not want to confine to hospitals, does not want to go to a medical doctor of Western medical doctor. They are actually looking for alternative ways. They are actually looking for holistic ways, more sustainable ways, more nature-friendly ways, and more part and parcel of life ways, right? So in that sense, Ayurvedic medical system is well suited for wellness tourists, right? So I think you can jolly well understood that particular part. So Ayurvedic medicines are actually extremely non-invasive and also preventive, and also it's a life science. So such a life science is actually well suited for wellness tourists. So that's why we are focusing very much this wellness tourism for Ayurvedic graduates, right? So that I think is the thing that you need to be remembered. So wellness tourism business, which has been growing all over the world, is flowing to certain countries, and one of those countries is next to us, India, right? So the wellness tourists are highly flocking around Kerala, flocking around all over India, and India has been making huge income through these wellness tourists. And you see, most of the traditional tourist destinations are trying to convert themselves into wellness tourist destinations. There are a few wellness tourist destinations in Europe as well. If you think about Czech Republic, if you think about Slovakia and all these kind of post-Soviet countries are being having wellness resorts there. But primarily the countries like Vietnam, countries like Cambodia, countries like say Bali, but the Indonesia, the Bali, they are all being converted into wellness aspects because they know money that we can gain from mass tourism is very limited, because in mass tourism, I think, like, any for your clarification, mass tourism is this particular large number of tourists coming into a country without a specific focus. So these guys are actually coming because the destination is cheap and they are not willing to spend so much, right? So they are spending very little money and they just being enjoy the destination and they go back. So return on tourist is very, very low. The tourist rupees, that tourist dollars we are getting in the country is low. Actually, the tourists coming into Sri Lanka is this type of tourists. That's why comparatively, even if you are comparing ourselves to Maldives, Kerala, or wherever, our tourism income per day per tourist is very less compared to the rest, right? So if we go for specialized tourism, this will not be the case, because in specialized tourism, you are opted voluntarily to take certain value additions and options for a cost. Say that you have been taking special formula made for you, say that you are getting a herbal bath or something like that, getting panchakarma done or whatsoever. These are all added value. So in a country's tourism economy will boom. Also, the particular segment which is serving wellness tourists is booming, and their duration of stay is higher, because they are not being just coming to be like watching our country and observing things and go back. They're coming to be engaged, coming to be part and parcel of the particular system and integrated themselves. And every wellness regime needs certain time period. I told you in last lecture, the particular hotels like Barbary are only invited guests who can stay there for 14 days. So do you mean, like, say, these 14 days your room is fully booked and you are being, like, say, serving full board and giving treatment for those people? That means, like, you are making a kind of a huge revenue out of that. So that's the potential of wellness tourism in a tourism destination. And if we consider ourselves, we are very well placed to do so with the Ayurvedic medical system and the country's other indigenous medical practice, right? So if you think about wellness, wellness goes beyond the physical health. I told you that wellness is multiple aspects: physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, social, and environmental are considered as the six most important aspects of wellness. Even you consider yourself, you have all these kind of aspects in you. You have physical aspects, mental aspects, spiritual, emotional, social, and environmental aspects. I think obviously when you're learning Ayurveda has been touching almost all those kind of parts. Even the classical Ayurveda text are touching these six elements in different ways. So you see that Ayurveda is a holistic life science which provides you the opportunity to cater the multiple aspects of wellness. So these all dimensions are being gathering together with a kind of a philosophical frame of Ayurveda, which connects body, minds, and spirit all together, right? So physical body is being keeping through healthy exercises like yoga, other kind of practices, the nutrition, the healthy eating, sleeping, etc. And the mental wellness is like about learning, problem solving, creativity, de-stressing, and all sort of aspects. Then emotional wellness, right? So controlling, or like say awareness about your emotions, maybe mindfulness and things like that are touching that aspect. And spiritual element which the purpose of being or purpose of being living is what we are calling as spiritual element. Your exact or ultimate purpose of life is considering through or your existence is being looking at in a purposeful manner through spiritual element. Maybe there are various religious traditions, maybe there are various spiritual traditions supporting that, right? And social aspect, connecting, contributing, be part of the community. Because if you think about most of the European or Western cultures, individuality and the isolation and the consumeristic, selfish individual living is what is most devastating in there. So you want to come into kind of a place where you will be allowed to be part of the community, where you are being like freely exchanged with the community. So country like ours and India is providing very fertile ground for such kind of tourists. So in social aspects, it is also well suited in these type of locations. These type of tourism destinations are well suited in that particular angle as well. So and the other one is the environmental angle. So healthy physical environment free of hazards, awareness of the roles we play in better rather than degrading the natural environment is what people are increasingly looked at. People are increasingly look at the sustainable environment in various aspects. Right? Even they are living in a sustainable environment, the nature and harmonizing with nature, and all these kind of things can be well provided within countries like ours. Whatever said and done, I think we do still have about 15 to 16% of the natural forest cover in this country, and it is diminishing. That is a different story, but that actually is being connected with all these kind of things. The country, the villages next to the particular say forest are actually probably by having monasteries, having Ayurvedic treatment centers, having a kind of a very fertile mountainous ground for trails and the physical well-being and very healthy food habits, all are connected. Because I being connected with few spiritual centers in Ududumbara. So if you think about a place like Ududumbara, you are seeing all these kind of things. The Nakar range and the forest and the water reservoirs and all are being there. And there are very many traditional villages, which serves you, which part you can easily become a part of a community. And now there's emerging spiritual centers, meditation centers, and all are being growing in that part of the country. So it is very holistic. Environmental aspects, the social aspects, emotional aspects, and everything is in together. Right? Probably what is missing in most of those kind of wellness equation is your presence. I think Ayurveda physicians and the doctors and the consultants are more or less being confined to traditional, so-called established Ayurvedic resorts, spas and resort cities like Bentot and all these kind of places, and rather not been looking at these alternative areas, right? So these alternative areas like Alla, and then if you think about the Adams Peak, Critical, as well as places like Ududumbara and all, are actually taking a kind of a filtered crowd from major tourist destination. If you think about these places like Ududumbara is very next to Kandy. You can be driving there within, I think, less than 1 hour's time, right? So if you have been placing a center there, the tourists who are coming into the Kandy will definitely take a kind of a cozy So that is one thing what you want to be looked at when it comes to wellness tourism. So global wellness landscape is vivid. It is very, very large landscape itself.
Mr. Bhutika, I think there was a pause for a short time. So,
Okay, okay.
yeah, about 1 minute, what you were talking, we couldn't hear.
Okay, I'll repeat. So, what I being discussed in my earlier slide is about the wellness potential we have, which is being untapped because of the fact that we are compartmentalized. That means like we are doing tourism in compartments. Wilderness and the nature tourism is in one area. Spiritual tourism or meditation centers run separately. And say villages and village rural tourism has been running separately. But all of these together can be centralized, can be like offering a kind of holistic experience. And in most cases, what is missing is you, Ayurvedic physicians, who are confined to the particular, say, beach resorts and all these kind of resort cities and popular tourism cities. And there's a lack of those people in actual wellness-oriented tourism establishment. Places like Allah to certain extent, and places like this particular Bududumbar and other kind of meditative developments are very much required the Ayurvedic physicians and Ayurvedic tourism involvement, right? So there is a massive potential for the growth of those areas. So if you think about wellness tourism, beauty is that you can offer anything under the banner of wellness because every country is being having their unique and specific tourism area, right? So this is actually a slide I've been took from Global Wellness Institute, which is being established. Global Wellness Institute is the largest wellness-oriented institute, which is being talking about tourism and various other kind of wellness aspects, right? Some of those words I don't even have a kind of a understanding what exactly they are offering. But if you think about entire world, most this shows many countries, right? So each of those countries are being having their own wellness habits, wellness indigenous practices, which they are offering in a kind of very sophisticated manner to the tourists. As an example, this hot spring resorts in China, right? So if you are being Googled this hot spring, anything in here, you will see how many tourists are being flocking around those. And this Anatolia and Banya, Russia, are actually the particular health houses made at the communist time period, which is being converted into tourist locations. And in Turkey's Turkish baths, Jim Jimjibang, sorry for my pronunciation, in Korea is actually bathhouses, right? So there are very many wellness aspects all over the world, and each of those are unique to that country, indigenous to that country, which can be offered as a kind of a unique practice itself. Even you think about Sri Lanka, you might be able to find certain things like that, right? So all these things has a kind of massive attraction, thermal, whatever the geothermal resorts and spas, rainforest spa treatments in Costa Rica. If you are be like Google Costa Rica, you can see how many people are going to that country for such kind of treatments, right? So this is actually giving you some kind of glimpse and insight what not that you can do within this particular wellness paradigm. Because all over the world, people always want to look for a unique, magical kind of things which is not available in their countries. Whenever you go into a kind of a country like a country of somebody else's, most of the educated European tourists are looking for these kind of wellness aspects, right? So you see, Colorado, California, Arizona, New York are all American states, right? So if you think about Colorado, the hiking and mountain yoga retreats, you can see Indian yoga is being came into Colorado, and they are being created their own form of wellness treatments there, right? So wellness is actually well-connected fusion of different world traditions, right? So wellness is business is really big. Wellness tourism is really big, and it actually creates a kind of a massive hype all over the world. And that hype we are expected to be doubled or tripled after Corona, after the COVID pandemic. People are right now need to stretch themselves, need to be like say de-stress themselves, detoxify themselves. They are confined to their homes. Most of them are having like very unhealthy lifestyles, and they want to be part of the nature again, be detoxify themselves, seek wellness aspects is one of the primary aspects of their mind right now. So wellness is about to grow, right? So you will be see a kind of a emerging wellness business in near future after this particular corona is being reduced to certain extent, right? So wellness to well-being is a journey towards spiritual tourism. If we are considering wellness is about fitness and the physical well-being and all, more holistic aspect is what we call as well-being. Well-being is like say your being, your existence, and the happiness of it. Right? I told you like spiritual is seeking the purpose of your existence. Right? So I think you might be having a kind of a better understanding than spiritual aspects than me. Any other definition? What exactly is spiritual? ආධ්‍යාත්මික කියන එකට අපිට දෙන්න පුළුවන් නිර්වචනය මොකක්ද? What is the way we can define the spiritual? Any of you? Is there any way we can define it better?
සන්තුට්ටි පරමං
Yeah. So the happiness is the most important thing in life. So people are seeking happiness in various materialistic aspects, and ultimately they were finding out it is not the case. So you will be go inside you and try to make yourself happy, and I think spirituality is being connected with that, isn't it? So in right hand side of yours, I'm showing you about the global tourism business at the time of 2015, which 2016, and then it is having a kind of a declining effect. But this is how it works. So if you think about cultural tourism, is one of the biggest businesses in the world. Go to the cultural sites, intangible or tangible cultural assets, and all these kind of things is an extremely big business. So it is like 800 billion to 1.1 trillion dollar business. And comparatively, wellness tourism is also a growing and emerging business of at least 439 billion at that time. And you see, spiritual tourism, this voluntary tourism, medical tourism are connected somehow in there. You see, culinary tourism, that is about food. And then eco and sustainable tourism, that is about nature. Then the adventure tourism about the fitness, and the sport tourism again about the fitness, and the voluntary tourism is like these particular volunteers who are coming to the other countries helping voluntarily and being like say getting a kind of a mental satisfaction through that. So you see, spiritual tourism is also a growing trend, a growing business itself, right? So so if you think about various different types of tourism, spirituality and spiritual tourism has a kind of a emerging growth within recent years. So multidimensional, dynamic, subjective, and personal aspect is what we are looking at when it comes to spiritual. Spiritual is personal. I don't think like spiritual cannot be explained or spiritual cannot be defined without talking about self. Existence of the self is connected with spirituality, right? So perception of the state of being, ඒ කියන්නේ අපේ පැවැත්ම ගැන තිබෙන අදහස තමයි මේ spirituality වලදී කතා කරන්නේ. So the spirituality is very much grown, very much popular, very much be part of the life of Asia. So if you think about the most of the Asian destinations are increasingly getting tourism who are seeking these spiritual aspects. So India get large chunks of the people. Thailand gets another chunk of the people because of the forest monasteries and Thai forest tradition and all, Myanmar, Burma, and such kind of places. And even if you think about China, even think about Japan, Korea, and such places are getting increasing numbers of people on this particular spiritual aspect. And Sri Lanka, though we do have a kind of spiritual tradition in place, our attraction as a spiritual tourism destination is very much behind these particular destinations. I don't think like we are much big in our spiritual market itself, right? Spiritual tourism business itself. It is ironical to talk spirituality as a business, but in a society where everything became a business, last thing is spirituality that we can't leave alone. No? So we are talking about the spiritual aspects also related to the tourism market, right? So, and has a prominent mental and emotional dimension when it comes to spiritual tourism. So, things what you are engaged under the particular spiritual tourism activities are actually not about the body, but having something connected to your mind, connected to your inner being, right? So, things which is been related to that is very much popular among the spiritual tourists. And they associate it with feelings of satisfaction and sense of fulfillment. So the fulfillment sense is something that they've been trying to achieve through that. Common usage in policy, government context, and all these kind of things. And there are all over the world right now, there's a tendency towards happiness. So if you think about countries like Bhutan, are the first country which is being adopted something called Global Happiness Index. But very many times, even at the level of IMF or the United Nations, people are talking about the most happiest people in the world. People are talking about the happiness index and all these kind of things. So happiness became an important aspect of life, and happiness is very much connected with your internal purpose of existence, your being, right? So spiritual tourism address that part. If wellness tourism is holistically looking at all the angles, spiritual tourism is focusedly look at the self, look at the individual, and they have been like say providing the spiritual elements for the individual. So in spiritual tourism, we are not talking people as tourists. Tourist, when you are talking somebody a tourist, අපි කාට හරි සංචාරකයෙක් කියලා කිව්වහම tourist කෙනෙක් කියලා කිව්වහම what comes to your mind? What is the word tourist will give you? What kind of way? First thing is what? Tourist මං කියන මේ definition එක නෙමෙයි නිකන් ඒවා tourist කෙනෙක් ගැන හිතුවොත් if you have been thinking about somebody like සංචාරකයෙක් කියලා කියපු ගම හරි මොකද්ද අපි හිතෙන්නේ? It is, yeah, it's outsider. It is actually not very stable. It is very temporary. It is not being integrated part of your particular this thing journey. So spiritual tourism, we are very much like to use the word travel. ඉස්සර දැන් ඔයා හිතුවොත් එහෙම most of the people who are being like in the world are going all over the world for pilgrimage purposes. They are travelers. අපි හිතුවොත් Fahian and Ibn Battuta or various other peoples, either the trading purposes or either the purpose of seeking spiritual higher level truths and all, people travel, right? So spiritual tourism, we tend to use the word traveler more than the tourist, right? So it is a traveler. It can be ගවේෂකයෙක් ලෝකයේ ගවේෂණය කරනවා සහ ඒ මගින් තමන්ව ගවේෂණය කරන්න විදිහක් හොයාගන්න. Right? So spiritual travelers is what the word that we are very much using. So that is something which is differentiated spiritual tourism from the mainframe tourism, which talks about tourists who are coming temporary and staying in these kind of places. I think I defined the tourist in last lecture of mine, and I explained what who tourists are to you. So I'm not going to do that in this lecture. So if you think about spiritual tourism, it connects with few things. There are religious tourism. That was the initial thing, right? There are people who are going for pilgrimages. වන්දනාවන්නේ වදඹදිව යනවා, වේලක්කන්න යනවා, ලූඩ්ස් මාතා වඳින්න යනවා, මක්කම යනවා කියලා අපි කියන්නේ. So these are all pilgrims which is related to religious aspects, right? And religious and pilgrimage tourism were going together. But after some time, even the people who are not being having a hardcore religious beliefs are being taken these pilgrims because it will give you kind of a wellness aspect as well as a different kind of a transformative aspect by just being traveling, because most of the pilgrims are difficult pilgrims, right? So these kind of tours and all are making your life fulfilled. So religious tourism, pilgrimages and spiritual tourism are actually getting away. Actually, pilgrimages and spiritual tourism are getting away from religious tourism bits and pieces. As an example, most of the people in Sri Lanka are going to Sripad, right? Are the people going to Sripad are religiously ardent religious believers? මේ Sripad යන ගොඩක් කට්ටිය මාර විදිහට මේ ආගම අධිහිමේ පාචේතනාවෙන් Sripad යන. Huh?
No. Not always.
ඒක හින්දා තමයි මම හිතන්නේ දැන් සිරිපාද යනකොට වැඩියම මොකද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ අපිට පොලිසියෙන් දාන්න වෙන්නේ. සිරිපාද යන මිනිස්සු ගොඩක් මොකද කරන්නේ? බොනවා, වෙන වෙන එන්ජොයිමන්ට්ස් කරනවා, right? ඒ කියන්නේ අර රිලිජියස් ඉස්සෙල්ලා අපි කියන්නේ දැන් සිරිපාද යනකොට තුන් සරණ එකයි කියලා පඳුරු බැඳලා කියලා යන්නේ. So දැන් කාලේ වෙනකොට ඒ කෑල්ල හැලිලා හැබැයි මිනිස්සු ඊට වැඩි සිරිපාද යනවා දැන්. You see, like a lot of people are going to Sripada, Adams Peak, but very less number of people are going for a real religious purpose, right? So people are taking away from this institutional religion and they are more or less looking at the spiritual aspect. This is not the particular purpose of this lecture. This is more of a sociological and beyond marketing angle. But what I'm saying is, like, right now we see a lot of people are seeking spiritual aspects other than confined religions, right? So confined religions is not the purpose, but they are traveling for spiritual and pilgrimage purposes. So this this diagram in your left hand side will give you some understanding of what I'm talking about. So the primary drivers of the spiritual tourism, earlier it is religious, right? So the religious observance, ritualized practices, specific occasions or special occasions, socialization, the religious identity, religious cultural practices are all connected. That is one end of spiritual tourism, right? So main day people who are going to Mecca, people who are going to Dambadiva, people who are going into certain very confined religious places are belongs to that day. These are pure religious purpose tourists, right? So they are very institutionalized. They are focused on the institutions. They are very much believing the particular, say, formal ways and all. But on the other end is the secular end, right? On the secular end, people are taking these spiritual paths and the pilgrims for the purpose of well-being and healing. Not exactly just because of the fact that they are believing in that religion, but they want to get that new experience, the adventure, the transformative aspects of it, right? And it is part of the personal development, personal quest. So they want to conquer something, they want to achieve something, right? And socialization, journeying, recreation, and leisure, right? So this is the type of people who are going for those kind of pilgrims, difficult tourist destinations, which has religious means, and trying to seek on that, right? So in tourism, if I'm thinking as a pure tourism marketer, I don't care whether the people are going for religious or secular aspects. Whatever the larger market share is what we are being serving for. As long as it is in sustainable manner and an ethical manner, we don't care whether they have confined religious beliefs or not, right? So this is the dichotomy of focus, right? So secular aspect is focusing on self, well-being, their personal quest and all this kind of thing. And religious aspect is looking for institution. They were been saying that this is in the religious calendar. They have to go to the pilgrim on this year. Then අපි කියන්නේ ආචිලාතල වන්දනාවේ අටමස්ථානේ වඳින්න 12 මස්ථානේ වඳින්න නම්මන. හරි. දැන් ඒක බොහොම religious institutional aspect එක. I'm not being criticizing. I'm not being like say condemning. That is a different end, right? So this end is the other end. The growing end is secular. Right? Larger number of youngsters. I think, like say, most of the people who are being in this webinar will witness it. If you are going into Sripado, whatsoever the place, which purpose you are going in, because of the fact that you are being so believed on this institutional or religious aspect, or believing in something else, right? So whatever the case, this is how it is, right? So travel to find purpose and meaning to your life is the purpose of this both parties, right? So the new age religious tour, new age spiritual tourists are also fallen into the same category, right? So if you think about the spiritual tourism trends, this is actually based on the United Nations report on spiritual tourism, which I think I will be able to share in my after this particular lecture along with the slides. Manur, I think I shared with you the other reading materials also belongs to last
Yes.
two sessions.
And I share it with all the students actually.
Thank you, Dr. Manur. So this was taken from that report. So there you will be getting very much of insights, and I will share it with you. So there are more and more people who want to participate in spiritual retreat trips. You know, there's a word called retreat, right? Say this, we are using Ayurvedic retreat. Again, what is the meaning of retreat? Hmm? Hmm? What exactly is retreat? Anybody? So it is kind of a self-treatment or treating you again or kind of things of that sort, right? So these are spiritual retreat trips. There are more and more people who want to participate in spiritual retreats. They have been like doing for themselves. They want to cleanse themselves. They want to be like, say, get into a kind of a personal quest, and spiritual cleansing is what they're looking for. They want to get away from their daily pressures and feeling refreshed by finding interest in discovering other nations, culture, and art. So they want to get refreshed. They want to be like, say, getting away from their daily, routinized, boring, bogged off lives, right? So they have been trying to take the alternative paths, and in most of the cases, these alternative paths are towards spiritual tourism. No longer, most of the sophisticated, matured European tourists are being interested about being like going into a theme park or something like going to kind of a exotic location and being observing something very magical is not that what they're looking for. They're looking for something to treat themselves, something to fulfill themselves, refresh themselves. So spiritual tourism is one angle of it. If you are thinking about spiritual tourism, then අපි හිතනවා normally when we are thinking about tourism, people who are in Sri Lanka, because I've been like very much handling the outbound tourism from here, people, Sri Lankans who are going out of Sri Lanka to other countries. When they go out of the Sri Lanka, even in Sri Lankans going anywhere, they have a kind of a huge list of things they want to do now. Say that you go to Malaysia, you have to do shopping, you have to go to a theme park, you have to go to this, you have to go to that, you have to get a dinner, මේවා list එකක් තියෙනවා. Right? These are all very touristic, very minute activities. ඒ කියන්නේ මේක නිකන් මම මේක කරා කියලා කියන්නේ ඒ කියන්නේ tick list එකක්. ඒ කියන්නේ මම මේකත් කරා මේකට ගියා අඩිෂනල් ගියා අරකටත් ගියා මේකටත් ගියා කියලා tick කරගෙන යන්නේ. So it's a tick list, right? But most of the mature tourists are getting away from these kind of tick lists, right? They are not being worried about getting a package from somebody, being pampered by somebody. They want to be their own, right? They want to be natural. They want to be authentic. They want to go and be like enjoying themselves, and they want to be refresh themselves, right? So these spiritual tourists are not being worried about being going into one location and stayed entire 14 days there in meditation, right? They are not being worried about take a journey of 1 or 2 months time and be like spending on that journey with the local people, right? So these are the type of people we are talking about. So they want to be part and parcel and integrated with the culture and the art of the country, right? And they are actually willing to be genuinely be part of it. They are not these particular immature first time destination seekers. They may be like visited the destination 2 or 3 times, but now they want to seek something internally themselves, right? So art, culture, spirituality, wellness all come together right now. There's no separation. Though we have been creating types and typographies of the tourism, if you think about the place where there's a cultural enrichment, obviously there's indigenous medicine is part of that. And there are certain heritage and the cultural aspects are part of that. Art is part of it. And the spirituality is also part of it. If you think about Sri Lanka, we have all these kind of elements. Still, we are serving them, as I tried to explain earlier, in a compartments, right? Then now only these resorts, the new age resorts, are being trying to serve all the aspects, cultural aspects, the artistic aspects, the food aspects and culinary aspects, indigenous medical aspects and all, right? So that creates a holistic meaning for a person and a genuine meaning, right? So religious tourism increasingly convert into new age secular spiritualism. So they are seeking spiritual paths. We have no boundaries. The particular Christianity, Muslims or Buddhists or Hindus or whatsoever right now is like interested on practicing yoga and practicing meditation. Probably been taking a kind of pilgrim tour in Spain, right? El Camino or wherever. So those are all became a part of the global tourists. So they all want to be getting a glimpse of the spirituality available in all over the world for a different set of people. And they are willing to accept it, right? So no religious institutional boundaries are valid in here. So they are always looking for something more than that when it comes to spiritual tourism, new age, right? So this is the theory part of it, right? So I've been talked about what health tourism is, and then I talked about the differentiation of wellness and medical tourism under the banner of health tourism, and then I've been shifted the particular focus to spiritual tourism, right? And one thing what you need to be mindful, all these kind of things are working together. So people who are coming into the medical aspects are actually looking for wellness aspect and spiritual aspect altogether. So that happens, right? But ideally, all these kind of areas has its own development, right? So if you think about the spiritual paradise in the world, that is none other than India, right? So those images that I've been putting forward in India, three of these images are not very far away from Sri Lanka, right? So India is a kind of very big country, no? And except the middle image, which is actually from Varanasi, rest of the three images are actually from South India, right? First one is Isha Yoga Ashram belongs to Sadhguru in Coimbatore, and the second one is Karnataka, and the third one is Kerala, right? So all these three are ideal places where you can see how everything works together. Health aspects, wellness aspect, as well as the spiritual aspects working together. And why I've been taken this case, because of the fact that India is the Ayurvedic birthplace as well. Ayurveda has been born there, Ayurveda has been popularized there, and still the Ayurveda is, they are the pioneers in that particular, right? So if you think about all these kind of places, they integrated all the aspects, yogic aspects, spiritual traditions, various other kind of aspects. So say this is whatever particular elements are being together. This Kerala houseboats is actually kind of a very healing location itself in their backwaters, right? So if you think about spirituality and wellness tourism, the locations like Sri Lanka giving you immense amount of natural potential. That means, like say, we do have the nature, we do have the indigenous practices, we inherent everything except the creativity and the ability to convert it into a tourism business, right? That is what we didn't have. That means we don't have the entrepreneurial capability. Everything else which India is being having by us here. ගැන අපිට නැති ඉන්දියාවට තියෙන එකක් නැහැ මෙතන. හරි? හැබැයි ඉන්දියාව ඒකෙන් මාර පොටෙන්ෂල් එකක් ගන්නවා. දැන් ඉතින් අපි හිතන්නේ මේ this particular national park in here is like I think Nandi Hills, right? So Nandi Hills in Bangalore, right? So Nandi Hills is mean Bangalore. This national park and this particular healing location is located, I think, 1 hour's distance from Bangalore city, right? ඉතින් මේවා ඇත්තටම very well integrated, very well connected to the particular natural living of theirs. Spiritual tourism and wellness tourism, beautiful part is you don't want to convert yourself into a very sophisticated tourism businessman. You don't want to have a kind of a front office managers. You don't want to have this particular sophisticated knowledge about how you are doing hospitality and all this kind of thing. This is as it is. There's no massive conversion of natural practices. People who are coming for spiritual and wellness purposes are coming for the natural self, natural being itself. They doesn't want something to be non-genuine. They want everything to be genuine. That's why you see like cities like Varanasi are actually not very clean. Varanasi is not a kind of a very pleasant place to be in. But at the same time, you will be see how many tourists are be visiting Varanasi on those kind of seasons like Kumbh Mela and all these kind of seasons, right? And you are thinking about other parts of India, it's the case is same. They are serving as it is, but they know the particular equation of tourism entrepreneurship, right? So we will see a kind of a massive development of spiritual and wellness tourism in this part of the world, right? And why I been take this example, Bali, Indonesia. Any of you been visited to Bali? Anybody who knows about Bali? Bali is very famous tourist destination in India, in the bottom part of India, not India, Indonesia. The bottom part of Indonesia, which is being located as an island and having a kind of very rich culture and the history, which actually inspired, or like say actually inherited from the Hinduist particular traditions, right? And Bali was a kind of a mass tourist destination, highly popular among Australian tourists. because Bali is like very much less distant from Australia. So there's a massive number of Australians going there, and Bali has bomb attacks, Bali has terrorism and all these kind of things. But tourism has been flocking around. But from 2015-16 around, Bali understood that mass tourism is not the way they can make themselves bigger and brighter. So they were very proactively converted themselves back to their particular roots, and their temples, their festivals, their particular activities are popularizing, right? So Bali became a kind of a spiritual tourism destination. They know that mass tourism approach is not the best approach, and they transform themselves into a spiritual tourism destination, and they have all the elements in place for that. If you are thinking about these pagodas in Bali, or that this particular middle picture is about a festival in Bali, which they worship all kind of trees. And there are festivals, they are worshipping all kind of animals, right? And they have Ayurveda type of practices, spiritualities, and all sort of things, which is highly popular among the New Age spiritual tourists, right? So Bali, which was earlier a kind of a very popular mass tourist destination, right now convert themselves. They do have mass tourism in place, of course, but convert themselves into kind of a very niche tourist segments, right? In marketing jargon, we use this word called niche. Any of you know what niche is, right? Niche එකක් කියන්නේ මොකද්ද කියලා දන්නේ කවුරු හරි ඉන්නවද? Anybody who knows what niche is? So in marketing, niche is a kind of a very specific market segment, probably not so big, but very attractive because they are very high valued kind of market segment. That means, like say, number of tourists coming into spiritual tourism is lesser, but their return is very high, and their revenues are very high, and they are high quality tourists themselves, right? So again, niche create කරලා තියෙනවා, right? So if you are taking certain other example, Vietnam is one good example of this sort. So we have a lot of examples of that sort. So I'm not going one by one into those. So to the final part, I've been thinking about introducing you to something that you can think of, the entrepreneurial paths, right? So all over the world, if you consider the particular society is moving into modern to postmodern, අපි කියනවා නම් මේ දැන් අපි ජීවත් වෙන්නේ පශ්චාත් නූතන සමාජයක කියලා. Most of those globalized citizens are right now reviving, coming back to these pilgrim paths, right? The 3 pilgrim paths I'm been showing here are very much popular among tourists, and these are actually traditional pilgrim paths of 3 different parts of the world. First one is El Camino in Spain, which is actually driving from one end to again another end called Santiago. මේ path එක famous Catholic religious path. මැද එක, it's in Japan. It is what we call as a path going through the woods to the Shinto shrines, right? So that is another path. And the third one, any of you know what this particular mountain is? Are you will be able to recognize it? Because it is very famous mountain. Anybody? Yeah, it's not Kilimanjaro. It is actually Mount Kailash in Tibet. What we call as Kailasa Kute කියලා අපි කියන්නේ. Mount Kailash is famous for whom? This is actually the place belongs to whom? Mount Kailash. Anybody who knows about it? I think the Ayurvedic graduates should know about Mount Kailash and all, no? Lord Shiva, yeah. It is Lord Shiva's mountain. And Mount Kailash is being visited, pilgrim by many people. They want to conquer the Mount Kailash. I don't know whether they can go up to there, but there's a massive flock of tourists to go there. These are all pilgrim paths. පයින් වන්දනාව යන pathways. Right? දැන් මේ පයින් වන්දනාව යන pathways massively tourists attract වෙලා. මේක living beings, villages මැද තියෙන ඒවා, ගමන, අරවා මේවා ඔක්කොම, because this is actually conquering. This is a personal quest. This is a spiritual journey, and this is actually something refreshing yourself. Not necessarily you are believing in either of those kind of religious traditions, but these are very unique locations in world, right? So if you think about us, we also do have something of that sort, right? I think I mentioned it earlier. That is none other than Sripad, right? So if you think about the Sripad or Adam's Peak, the potential of Adam's Peak in wellness and spiritual aspects is immense, right? So some of them are being actually explored, right? And there are certain packages of it and all these kind of things are there, but still, it has a kind of huge tourism potential. And if you think about the location and the surrounding and all these kind of places, it is ideal for a Ayurvedic retreats and all. After all, this is mountain climbing, right? So once you have been climbing the mountain and coming back, this the left-hand side, the screenshot have been taken from TripAdvisor, right? What they are seeking is a great massage after Adam's Peak, right? So various kind of health tourism aspects can be mingled with, can be connected with this kind of thing, right? If you are entrepreneurial enough, this is something that you can look at. Not only this one, any other pilgrim paths, these kind of lifestyle tourism can be popularized, right? Other pilgrim path, or the I think the longest pilgrim path of Sri Lanka, which has been taking I think almost 2 months. Any of you? I don't know. I didn't have a fortune of being going this path totally, but something I really want to do in my life. That is what we call as Padayatra. Right? Padayatra is from where to where? What are the starting points and the ending points of Padayatra? Hmm? Hmm? Any of you? Padayatra starting from Jaffna and leads to Kataragam. I think most of you are able to answer the particular thing. Any of you being visited on Padayatra? Have you had a chance of being completing a Padayatra or at least being part of it? Hmm? Anybody has a chance of doing so? I don't know. We really, I think if I've been asking it in a kind of general management class, only really people knows about Padayatra also. It is at least good enough that you know that thing. But Padayatra is very similar to these particular world pilgrim tours that I show you, right? The entire Padayatra වලට මම හිතන්නේ එන time එකක් යනවා 2 months වගේ යනවා, but මේක part and parcel කරන්න පුළුවන්. මේ El Camino අරන් බැලුවත්, මේ Shinto pilgrim එක අරන් බැලුවත්, Mount Kailash climbing අරන් බැලුවත්, මේවා ඔක්කොම ඒ වගේ activities, right? So this has all the potential to be a kind of massive spiritual tour itself. Some of the people have been offering it, like say again the particular screenshot in the left hand side is me showing you a kind of a website which is actually selling the Padayatra tours, right? Maybe beautiful part is like you can get a chunk of it. You don't want to complete the entire thing. You can complete one part of it, right? And also it covers the northernmost point of Sri Lanka and coming back to the particular southernmost points of the country. So it is covering a cross section of cultures, cross section of medical practices, cross sections of what? Cross sections of everything, right? So wellness, the foods too, everything. You can cover entire gamut of Sri Lanka through this Padayatra. That is a very genuine, very involved, voluntary, sacred tour made by the people. Right? The Mekaram Balot Padayatra ekedi, what is the Ayurvedic, what is the indigenous medical practice of the particular native medical system in Jaffna? Hmm? You guys have been like learning Siddha, neither?
Yeah,
So
Siddha is having some roots into there, but they have some Tamil practitioners,
As well.
they have
Yes,
roots
yes.
in Siddha, but they have indigenous
Right.
medicines as well,
Right, doctor.
combination.
Yeah. So the point I want to make is like if you think about Jaffna up till Trincomalee or somewhere, you will be having these type of medical practices. Then you go down from Trincomalee up to Batiklo and probably Potuil and all. What you see is like the particular more medical practices, maybe Unanis and
Unani,
practices
yes.
practices belongs to the Muslims and all these kind of people, right? And then you go to Katharagama, Thangala and that kind of area. Again, you will be like say seeing what Deshi Chikitsas and all, right? So it is entire cross section of Ayurvedic to itself, right? I think no, if you are taking the route on the other hand, you will not be taking this type of a way, right? හැබැයි මේක මේකේ තියෙන potential එක tourism angle එකකින් අපි popularize කරලත් නැහැ. Even national level we are not been looking at it, right? And I'm not been saying like say encouraging the tourists to be go entire Padayatra is not a very feasible thing. But making Padayatra promoted and being introduced them to be part of it will give us a massive tourism potential. Right? And anybody can do that because මේක යනවා කැලෑම ඇද්දෙන් මේක යනවා කුඹන පැත්තෙන් මේක යනවා nature resource අස්සෙන් මේක ආපහු මහපාරට එනවා කෝවිල අස්සෙන් යනවා. So there's massive number of cultural vividity in this particular journey, right? So spiritual potential, wellness potential, Ayurvedic potential, cultural and nature potential are all gathered in this particular journey, which is not being promoted, right? So all over the world, pilgrims have been taken a kind of a momentum with the new age tourist because they need to seek the spiritual path in a more secular way. And nothing belongs to kind of one religious tradition. At least the Padayatra is not been doing by one religious group, I think. That they are all together connected, and also there are many even indigenous people have been connected it in some point, right? So it's something very beautiful. So it is a new age pilgrim path which I just been trying to give you a kind of a ponder for your thinking. So if you think about overall in these three lectures, except the first one, the second and the third lecture, today's lecture, today's session, what I've been trying to give you, the webinar is being all about tourism. Right? So national tourism of Sri Lanka is being promoted our tagline called So Sri Lanka. Right? And So Sri Lanka is actually has a kind of page for So Spiritual. And we are talking about wild thrills, bliss, essence, and festivals. We have so much of everything, but unfortunately this so much is something which has been crippled us. When we do have kind of so much of something, what happened? We are so bogged off with only with that. We have a lot of nature, what we do? We are only thinking about nature. When we have little nature, what we do? We are connecting nature with somebody else, something else, right? So this integration problem is been seen by many of us. So as Sri Lankans, so what is our next move to the tourism is what I'm being asking as citizens, as medical graduates, as responsible, educated youth of this country. That is what I'm being asking from you. Whether you do think about having a kind of a tourism entrepreneurship or any other kind of entrepreneurship, don't we have everything in place? It is about our own motivation, own drive, and own requirement, which is not been in place. So Sri Lankans is the question. So that's it, and that's the end of the session. So over to you if you have any questions.
Dear students, you can have, thank you very much, Dr. Mr. Hevawasam, and I want students to unmute themselves by using the raising hand option, or else I will ask Mr. Lahiru to change the option as that you can unmute yourself. Give me a few minutes. Yes, now you can unmute and ask any questions if you have. Actually, Mr. Yavasam, it's a really very wonderful presentation because actually I enjoyed it a lot. It bring back many memories related to my experience in Varanasi as a MS student, right? For masters, I was there for 3 years, and Ududumbara, which I worked for 3 years, no, 1 year as a community medical officer, and about Mount Kailash. I think all these spiritual journeys, mm, actually, we all want to go there one day, and especially if I remember one of our uh, experiences as ICCR scholars, uh, we had actually as a ICCR scholar, I went to we had the chance to go to several places covering from Haridwar into different places. I can't remember the names, but they forcefully brought us to on a pilgrimage actually. So some of the students were really angry because they had the experience in the previous times of ICCR this program. It's a 10 days trip, so it's a long trip, uh, 10 days or 4 days, I can't remember. It's a long trip anyway. So we had to spend several nights in different places, but they took us forcefully to on a pilgrimage, including several places, right? But earlier, at the beginning, we were really against it, but finally, I think we really enjoyed that. I can remember all of us enjoyed it from different countries, not only Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, I think Dr. Peshala is also here. We both went on the same trip, and I think she can remember. She will also add
Yes.
something. Yeah, and other few countries, Afghanistan and different. They were against it. Why we don't have food which is without meat? How can we eat? Because those were Muslim students, and they were really reluctant to take vegetarian food. But they emphasize that this is a pilgrimage, so you have to eat vegetarian food. So it's a great experience. Can you add something, Peshala, about that?
And we had to practice yoga, right? Every day, every morning.
Yes, that was also there. Yes, students, dear students, you can ask any questions because I think it's really interesting presentation. So
Yeah,
it's
I
up
think
to
like
you.
it's your time. Ask the questions as well,
Yeah,
because the fact
because
is like this is my last lecture, so I will not be the one who's been doing the next webinar. That will be, I think, as Dr. Manori explains, two experts on the particular area of grooming and etiquette.
you have another one. You have
Ah, is
another
that so?
on sixth. Sixth, you have another one.
Okay.
Afterwards, I think we have the 13th. On
Ah,
6th,
right.
we
Okay.
have
Okay.
a
So sorry.
yeah.
I been misplaced the date. So. It's up to you. Please, any question that
Yeah.
you have, feel free to ask it. Ask it in Sinhala or else in English, whatever the language is
Please,
perfectly
students, you
okay.
can unmute yourself and ask. Please open up because I know that you have a lot of questions. No, any questions?
I think
Any comment? Any
one
comment?
person is being have a kind of question over the chat session,
Okay, sure.
but it is nothing relevant to the subject area. But let me like say answer you as far as I can understand how to start such pilgrimages, from whom we have to take the permission. I don't think that there's any reason for you to take any permission, because these are anyway pilgrim routes. So if you do it in India, probably yes, you need to get the visa and all this kind of thing, which is I don't think is difficult at all. Right now, now these days anyway you can't do, but normally India has been allowing online visa to Sri Lanka last year, so that will be permitted in near future as well. So if you do overseas pilgrims, it is not a kind of very big deal. And I don't think like even when it comes to Padayatra or Sripad or whatever the particular pilgrims, it's all about the intention of doing it. It's all about being part of it, right? So there's no requirement of permission. Every detail is available in the web these days. How to go to Rishikesh or how to go to Varanasi or how to go to Haridwar or whatsoever. It's not a difficult deal itself. And if you think about these are costly, it is not. Sorry, I've been muted my thing. So these are very affordable to the people also. So you can enjoy yourself and you can be part of the spiritual tourism journeys. And it's extremely interesting thing to do, because like the money that we spent is well worth in there. With the Sri Lankan resources, we can arrange creative destination, but arranging land and place cost a lot. Is it about, I don't even know whether it is being connected to the earlier question, but it is something about arranging a land and place kind of thing. But what happened is like we are not looking at it in a creative way, because we are always looking at being achieving these entrepreneurial dreams or whatever single-handedly. We want us only. We want to do a kind of a self project, and probably you don't take the contribution of the people who are willing to contribute. Say some might be having a kind of a land plot in a kind of a very scenic area, but he doesn't have any tourism idea. මේ ලංකාවේ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ හුඟක් වෙලාවට ඔක්කොම එක මිනිහෙක් අරගෙන වැඩේ කරන්න try කරනවානේ. Right? Any other country, people are actually lending, leasing, partnering, and there are many other options. Partnership options are there. There are various ways of doing things. Right? Most of the tourism businesses and the recent days tourism entrepreneurs are actually like-minded individuals getting together. I know like one individual who is a prominent nature photographer of Sri Lanka. They were starting a kind of a venture of luxury camping in Kumana and Yala. These luxury camping is being having all the luxurious aspects, and these camps are high cost, but offering some kind of very high-end markets for the tourists. So there are about 4 to 5 people get together. One is actually a airline guy who's been helping them to get this particular camps and all. Other one is the photographer and the naturalist. Other one owns the land in the particular places. And likewise, they all work together and they made a successful venture. So it is all about changing your thinking. Sometimes if you are waiting to do it individually, it might be very difficult. Or else we can do it in very minute scale. Right? So viable scale, you need some other people's support. Right? So that is available, I think. Okay. Can we go to Bali in this COVID period? No, you can't, because the Indonesia travel is not happening from Sri Lanka, and Indonesia is very hardly hit with COVID. So because of that, Bali is actually stopped. Actually, we do, in my particular arm of Sri Lankan Airlines, we do Bali holiday packages very much, and we actually encourage people to do their pre-shoots in Bali, and that's how we make our bread and butter. But right now the business is very dull and lull, but we hopefully it will be open from December onward, I think, and you may be able to enjoy traveling because we are starting most of our flights from August onward, but to Indonesia it may take little time. So any other questions?
I think for the other students' question regarding land and
Yeah.
courses, if you take the example that you gave about Kandy, and from Kandy, that Ududumbar and that area, I think the land prices are also very less when you are going into the.
It's very cheap. Actually, there are many people I know who brought lands in Ududumbar area, and they brought it for quite considerable lower sum. Actually,
Yes.
දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ රාජගිරියේ ඉන්නේ. එතකොට කවදා හරි මෙහෙ ප්‍රැක්ටිස් එකක් කරගෙන මෙහෙ පර්චේස් 10ක් ගන්න ගානට එහෙ අක්කරයක් විතර ගත්තා.
අක්කරයකට වඩා ගන්න පුළුවන් දැන් මේ මාළඹෙත් so
So
රාජගිරිය කොහොමද ගන්න බෑ.
ගන්න බෑ, even we can't afford. So I don't think it is actually inability of us to get the proper information and proper approach. And අනිත් එක මේ tourism ventures suddenly, if you think about buildings and all, no longer the cost is very high because now we are using very much of sustainable materials and the local technology, right? And it is very much accepted. Even I think Dr. Manori and rest of the staff in here can witness, because if you go to India, you don't see that much of sophisticated places. No, it's like very basic and very utility-oriented places. They all are being having what is essential for the particular purpose.
Yeah.
අනිත් මේ meditation centers වලට එන අය මේ වැඩි ලොකුවට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. They don't expect the kind of a sophisticated 5-star living there.
Yes. And I think the practice also, right?
Yeah.
The thing that when come to retreats and all, you always mention why the genuinity is important, because these travelers are different from the normal, as you said, exactly, because they are seeking something very genuine.
Yes,
So the
yes.
students also, I think they should inculcate the habit of having the training of yourself, right? I think I'm trying to do it, because we have to practice yoga, practice meditation, and then by being a good person, I think we can help a lot of people. Even for entrepreneurship, we can help the village people to earn by gathering them into this work, right?
Yes,
because,
very much.
Yeah, students are from different areas. Some are having the potential to do that.
Yeah, that's why I've been like, say, even last lecture and this one, I've been trying to show you every part of Sri Lanka has a potential of its own. If you think about this, why being I being chosen, pick and choose this particular Padayatra pathway, because I know, like say in IIM, students are from all these 3 areas, right?
Yes.
So Padayatra pathway is being is actually kind of real good example. Any part of Sri Lanka, this can be done. Even like last lecture, I'll be showing you this particular geothermal wells we have.
Yeah.
Those locations are also all over Sri Lanka. So if you think about ability of us to start a tourism potential, it is very much in your own village surroundings, and it can create.
Padayatra is your idea, or about tourism and Padayatra? Is it your?
No, actually, like it was promoted in some cases, but I've been using this particular thing specifically since that I'm doing this lecture for your students. So.
But it's a really good thing, I think. It's a really potential. There's a good potential in that. I think it's a good idea that if we can develop that part with the Ayush idea, right? Yes.
So that's what it is. Even in this slide, you can see in the right-hand side, I've been showing something called Nisala Foundation, which actually being listed under Sri Lanka Tourism website. This is Sri Lanka Tourism website, so Sri Lanka. And under So Spiritual, or the spiritual tourism, they were showing this Nisala Foundation, which I was actually also a member of it. So remember, in the sense, I was also a beneficiary of it. I've been meditated in this place. This is in Ududumbar. This one is in somewhere in a jungle in Ududumbar, and very well managed, and it is like in English language, and they do a kind of real good job, and they attracted Koreans, Indians, even Japanese, and they conducted 4-day retreat programs in there. So you have those kind of places, bits and pieces.
Yeah. I think some students also have found it difficult to connect, maybe due to some
Yeah, might be there are technical
Yeah.
difficulties. So for the benefit of them, we will upload this record as well.
Yeah,
So
therefore, no worries. Actually, we
yeah,
can do it later.
if no questions by now, can we wind up for the moment?
Sure, yes.
Right.
Thank you very much for your time and efforts. Actually, you are taking pains in preparing for the session, right? And
No, I do really
on
enjoy, and thank
time.
you very much.
Yeah, actually, we are also enjoying how you are presenting and all the information. So I think students also same, because they are getting a different dimension, and they will learn a lot of things. And I am inviting the students to uh, think of this, reflect on these things, and if any of you want to develop your own uh, career in this type of setting, you better keep the contacts with us, because we will try to help you to the best of us. Even Mr. Buddhika Hewawasam is ready to help you all. So thank you very much, Mr. Buddhika.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manori, and thank you very much, everybody who listened to this session.
And without the participants, we don't have a webinar. So thank you very much.
So good night, everybody, and have a nice weekend too.
Yeah, thank you. Wish you the same.